BM as well, right?
Yeah.
But let me check that I have the fucking thing here.
You must hold the microphone at the top because this is the transmitter, so you can cover it with your hand. It'll cause problems.
Do I need to turn this on? No, or is the guy at the back is operating this thing? Okay. Welcome everyone. So DeFi and traditional finance are slowly starting to converge, but can they really work together? So we have some panelists here today that are going to dive into the risks, the challenges, but also the massive opportunities of these two financial worlds connecting. So with that, here are the panelists in the discussion.
Thank you. Hi everyone. My name is Cedric Maloux. I am a partner at the Fintechers, which is a fintech accelerator, a partner of the East Prague, and I'm also a partner at Startup Yard, which is the longest running startup accelerator in Central Eastern Europe. So as our host just announced, we're going to talk about how do we bridge this gap between DeFi and traditional finance, and I have with me an eminent panel, so maybe it's going to be easier because you're going to do that better than I will do, is to introduce yourself, and I will ask you as part of your introduction to answer one question. It's what must happen before DeFi and TradFi can truly work together at scale? So just introduce yourself and try to answer that question. Do you want me to repeat the question? You good?
No, I answered the question. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. So hey everybody, ahoy. I'm Ben from BNB Chain. Basically doing some stuff also with institutions. You saw some announcements in the past month. What exactly needs to happen to to basically onboard institutions to Web3 and the other way around? It's basically a question for each of their own to clarify. I think there is enough rails and possibilities right now. I understand that the regulatory landscape was not always ideal, but this was this is getting much better now.
All right, thank you, Ben. Mariia?
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. Very glad, first of all, to participate in this panel and see that we have more and more open discussions about this bridge have to come closer to each other. My name is Mariia. I'm leading people operations and recruitment at CowDAO. CowDAO is an open organization of developers, market makers, and community members with a mission and vision to provide the most user-friendly and protective products in the ecosystem. Answering your question, what should happen, I would say understanding and from both sides that we should come closer and diving into the real issues which both are facing and understanding that we are here for the users and we need to come closer to each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariia. Michal?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me. So I'm from the Fintechers, the Fintech accelerator, and building the biggest Fintech community in Central and Eastern Europe. Also, I'm partner of Dep Ventures, so my background is in early stage investments, focusing on fintech very much, and what to do to do this like cooperation between TradFi and DeFi on scale. We had a talk like right before this discussion, and I think I have a very simple answer. We have to make laugh, because now we are at flower stage and everything is about cooperation. In last 2 days, we've seen many great presentations, but only a few of them were pretty like about cooperation between TradFi and DeFi. The most of them was like pretty focused on like making progress in one of this field. However, without this cooperation, you know, without bridging these two worlds, actually there is no chance to like leverage the value of both worlds.
Thank you, Michal. Patrik?
Yeah, you're right. Love is the goal, but we're far from that. So this is Patrik coming in representing Komerční banka, which is a banking incumbent here in Czech Republic, and Société Générale. We are part of that. And my responsibility is running a captive venture fund and private equity arm of Komerční banka. And the goal of this venture fund and or private equity organization is to enable cooperation between the bank, the TradFi, and the Fintech. So this is a very similar topic. We have sort of 5-6 years under our belts of successful cooperations. Successful, not like politically successful, but successful between bank and Fintech. So, and I'm thinking hard about what of the lessons might be replicated to TradFi banking and crypto. And love is the end, but before that, I think that both sides need to get rid of their share of blindness. Yeah, I mean, you know, when I have kind of the crypto enthusiast cap on my head, I always think that it's the bankers who are blind. Yeah, but not really. I mean, after 2 days here, I see that the crypto crowd is, I mean, blinded to many sides as well. Yeah, and need to extend kind of beyond the comfortable zone.
Thank you, Patrik. So you talked about love. I didn't expect that. But the opposite of love is hate. And hate is very often based on misunderstanding. So my question for all of you would be, what is the most misunderstood aspect of DeFi from the traditional finance perspective and vice versa? Do you want to, we can... You know.
Yeah, I would say that institutions are typically not used to come to a place where they are in front of a big sea and they don't know how to swim, and you say, okay, the sea is here, just jump, right? So this is a big difference. There's also, you know, sometimes multiple layers of approvals in both, right? So this is also something that we can work on optimizing, I guess. But I would say this approach of onboarding users is also a bit different. Crypto users, the average crypto user is probably, you know, very much different from a traditional person coming to the bank, I would say. So knowing the user base is actually where everything starts, and knowing the end goal is something that's paramount, because everybody has different goals, what they are trying to achieve, and the needs that are trying to meet, right? So yeah, this vertical is very important.
And what do you think the banks don't understand about your business?
Not sure if they don't understand, but I would say maybe they don't want to understand, because they are forced to not understand based on frameworks that they are given, right? So we have to understand how this industry even started to, you know, emerge and where it came from. And this is probably a philosophical question, and it's going to be, you know, multiple hours of me talking if I go into this. But I guess that there is a need for self-custody. There is a need for owning better assets. And this is something that, you know, our industry is known for, and there's people from the traditional world that want this access to something like this, right?
Well, let me jump to Patrik, and then I'll get back to the other. No, we have to, you know, you have to answer that. So what do you think they misunderstand about your business, and do you agree that his misunderstanding is correct?
Yeah.
You hate Binance?
I hate Binance?
I don't know.
No, I don't hate Binance.
I'm sure he's a
I mean,
client. I'm sure he's a client anyway.
I don't know who's
Provocative
Binance.
already.
Oh, no.
We should be careful.
I think the answer is probably same for both of the directions of your question. I won't talk about prejudice and money laundering. No, that's unimportant. It's just a matter of time before this dissipates. I'm not sure I have the essence, but I think but I am pretty sure that the one thing to overcome is to understand the differences in the governance of the two worlds, while the governance of the crypto world is, kind of pretty much coded, and this is the thing that you truly believe, and this gives its advantages, but also disadvantages, basically properties. The TradFi world is following legislation, is top-down, is hierarchical. There's this fiduciary duty. There is no fiduciary duty in crypto. This is very different, and what is being missed here in the picture that both of these methods are nothing else than government's methods and processes, and both sides are basically codes, although the TradFi codes are not that deterministic, they are not coded, right? But they are like if-then processes. And if these two groups when they are able to come to this understanding that this is just the way we manage reality and there are many overlaps, then we can find the common language. I mean, this is at least one of the essences. I'm sure there are other, but this needs to be overcome and will be overcome because there are strong points on both sides.
Mariia, can I turn to you and see what do you think the traditional finance people misunderstand about what you're doing?
Right, so it really depends on from what side we look at it, from the user perspective or from the bank perspective. And indeed, there are lots of misunderstanding. I would give you a few of them. For example, about the decentralization. The central finance is something, the traditional finance, they are centralized. It's something what people are familiar with. They think they know how it works, even if sometimes it's very different than what they think. And just an idea of the decentralization for them, it's not understandable, the way how the permissionless works, for example, composability, have the decision can be made if you talk about the governance. And the other thing is about the complexity. DeFi, how it works right now, some protocols are still very technical, and the users need to be technical. So you really need to learn. That's why for them it's something untouchable. They would love to touch, but they don't know from which side to come. That's why I'm already giving a solution. One step how the DeFi can come closer to the users is to build the products which easy to use and they are understandable for the users. So they don't need to assume, they don't need to be technical, and also with the small pieces of education explain what the decentralization means, what are the values, what is the permissionless, what is the value proposition, and how it can scale in the future. And even like smart contracts, or that we are open source, where you can come and read the contract, you can understand what's happening behind the scene. It's not like a black box and you are trying to figure it out, but more knowledge, more education, more understanding, more decentralization aspects definitely will help both users and central bank to understand how can DeFi come closer to, like traditional finance can come closer to decentralized finance, how they can come close to each other. Because the way how I see, I don't see it black and white. So one bad or one is good. I see it as none of them are ideal yet. And to be more focused on the user, to think what they need, they have to come to each other closer and to understand how they can cooperate with each other, what products they can build, what layers they need to add, and more understanding simple things for the users to use and do not think about the complexity.
Thank you, Mariia. Michal, if I'm not mistaken, you're coming from a traditional finance background, right? And today you are investing in blockchain startups. So you've walked the path, yeah? So you're kind of probably the one the most looking at both sides. So what do you think one side doesn't understand from the other?
Many things, you know, even if we talk about traditional finance and we talk about a traditional fintech and investing in traditional fintech startups, even these startups have an enormous problem to with going to market, because big banks and traditional banks and financial institutions, they don't understand them, you know. So that's one a layer, and with DeFi and decentralized finance, you have additional layer. And I think that we didn't solve the first layer yet. You know, we didn't solve the ability of institution to somehow work with the innovations. You know, and like step back, everything is about a common language and about a simplification. And at the end of the story, both sides only want to have the job done, you know. So, and if we talk about customer, they only want to buy like banana or I don't know, lunch, you know. And what is behind the transaction, they don't care. So I think we need to talk about how to get this job done in a more simplified way, in a more efficient way, but without without using this like blockchain thing, because the target user, they don't care. And we invested like 6 years ago in Tatum. Yeah, they do a blockchain developer platform, so infrastructure things. And we thought with founder about like how to sell this platform to institutions, and we were in discussion with MasterCard and I guess even Komerční banka and so on, and it was 2019. Nobody in the bank and in MasterCard knew about, you know, what is blockchain. There were some people, but it was very challenging to have a discussion about some value proposition. So we had to make the story much more simplified. What the solution will make easier for them? How much it will cost less, you know, compared to the previous solution, and so on and so on. So yeah, we have to simplify. We have to be people, humans, you know. We don't have to fight. We have to decrease our ego, because at the end of the day, the most of these business discussions are about ego. And yeah, I think that's the solution.
So
can I add to that?
Patrik, yes, please.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's the love again. Yeah, I agree to that. Maybe to add other steps or other job to get done apart from the love you mentioned and the use cases that you are kind of talking about, right? The value for the end customer. Yeah, I think that the use cases and the competitive advantage of these rails need to be made much clearer, and there definitely are. And I don't understand why the banking world at TradFi would not understand terms such as speed of settlement and 24/7, etc., right? And they are able to understand that like today. Number one. However, there is many howevers, but one however is you don't always need is the speed of settlement and the opening hours, right? And I think that sometimes, we technical crowd can get carried away by the beauty of the technicalities, right? So if I back again put the head of the banker, yeah, I would love if I manage a, let's say, advanced capital market team in bank, I love settlement on weekend and speed of settlement and the visibility of and daily subscription of interest rates, right? But I can't use this stuff. It's not regulated. It's not. There's no joint language. I mean, so basically the tools grown up in this world need to be usable for the bank. I mean, the bank with the heart in the right spot, they have no chance. But not to use these properties. We have a daughter company or sister company in Paris called SG4. They are one of the most advanced in Europe, probably in world in tokenization in Ethereum-based Euro bonds, like plain vanilla. They did many 20, 30 bonds with EIB, European Investment Bank, European Central Bank, etc. And they are right now in initial phases of basically doing the repo operations and primary market operations. Guess how often the deputy CEO, David Duroux, would be consulting with the Bank of Paris, Banque de France, the regulation. It took a year of weekly 2-hour sessions. So the talks with the regulator and the energy and needs to be invested from this crowd to the regulation as well, because that's the gateway to the TradFi and to the scaling via the TradFi.
Can I add, please? Yes. Thank you so much. So what I would like to add is that indeed, for the DeFi regulation, it's one of those topics which still should be done and should be solved. However, very often people expect that it should be done the same way as it's for the traditional finance, which is wrong. Because if it would be the same as for the traditional finance, which is clear for the users, right, it would lose the whole point of the decentralization and of other aspects which DeFi holds. That's why I really like that you mentioned regulations, and I see it as one of those things, if it will be solved, I mean, the question is when it will be solved, rather I would say for the DeFi, then indeed we can come closer to the users. However, the solution of the regulations should be different. So we need to come up with a new way of the regulations, which would be not replication of the traditional finance which we have right now, but would benefit both. And in this case, we indeed can cooperate with the traditional finance faster, more efficient, and so on. I also like, Michal, when you mentioned ego, that what stops ego, I would add also money. Because for the traditional finance, the way how it works right now, that it's done. I mean, it's working. There is users, right? So we get more users one after another, and there are more and more users going to come. If you speak about the DeFi, what is the percentage of the users we have? I would say 5 around. From the total amount, and still the majority of the people use traditional finance. So I would say the need for them is different than for us. For us, I mean for the decentralized finance. So for us, the need is, okay, so we need to have the mass adoption, but the way how we want to make the mass adoption. So we don't want just to convince everyone that, you know what, guys, our solution is better, and that one is not. That's not the way for sure, but the way how, with our innovations, we can come closer, and what solution we can bring, and how can we cooperate with both parties, but both parties need to understand that. See the need.
What I'm hearing is, on one hand, you need the DeFi platform to become more compliant, and right, the traditional finance to become more open. Right? Now,
thank you.
Who's going to be the fastest? And is it a race?
fastest in terms of coming
The
closer
fastest
to
to be
each other?
compliant from the DeFi, or the fastest to be open for the bank?
I would
Or are
say,
they still going to stay in there, you know?
yeah, I'm not sure if we can solve this question
I'm
in
not
this
sure
panel. However, I definitely believe that the future will tell us. And what I can say is that in the decentralized finance, this is the topic we often and actively speak. So we see the need, we understand the need, and this is something what we are working on. I would love to see more. But again, the time will say, and there is some other things which also should be done on place to have it done.
Mm-hmm. So we talked about bridging those two worlds. What would true collaboration look like? I mean, do we have today examples of collaboration between traditional finance and decentralized finance working hand in hand together? Ben, I see you nodding.
Yes, definitely. And like maybe I haven't really like broken it down at the beginning, right? So BNB chain is a layer 1 blockchain basically, right? With a certain set of validators that is just providing the validation of transactions, right? You have also exchanges, you know, one of them is of course Binance, is one of the biggest ones, but also Kraken and also the other ones. And a crucial component is also the wallet, basically, right? So you have different wallets there as well. Basically, as a successful use case that, you know, that I can maybe highlight of how we really onboarded on the BNB chain, a big institution, VanEck, was with, for example, tokenized treasuries. They're basically tokenizing, you know, US T-bills, cash and cash equivalents. And this is basically a way how they brought an existing real-world asset to the blockchain, right? And surprising for me is that, you know, I kind of expected that mass adoption of this category is going to come from the bottom up, for example, from like an illiquid, you know, some illiquid asset, and then being fractionalized and being easily traded on the blockchain. We came actually from top down, from the asset managers, for example, on this specific use case where they're tokenizing something that's already very liquid, right? There's nothing more liquid than cash and cash equivalents, basically, right? But this is also good because there's less risk involved in those things. There's no huge Oracle risk there. I mean, risk is always present, right? There's always a risk also now that a meteorite is going to strike us, basically, right? But I think it's a good way to start with the most safest assets. And to collaborate on those and find synergies on those that are the kind of like the lowest hanging fruit, but produce the biggest impact also, right?
Maybe I'll jump to Patrik, because I know Société Générale has, you know, put their feet in the water a little bit on blockchain technology. So what kind of specific use case have you seen within the bank?
Yeah. I think that Ben is kind of hinting at something that it will be like different parts of the DeFi space that the banks or the DeFi will be faster, either getting ahead of the regulation or opening up. Depends. For sure, in many aspects, DeFi, although I've said a couple of times that it needs to kind of get regulated more or get friends with regulation, the less regulated the faster, right, in the doing. So in many aspects, it's the DeFi that's destined to be fastest, and all these, you know, Bitcoin-backed lending and collateralized lending. I mean, the product is there, right? It kind of needs to get the connection to the TradFi via regulation, but it's already kind of working. So this. Here, I would bet on DeFi to be advanced, and when I'm talking digital asset-backed lending, I also, you know, the advantage and the natural comparative advantage of the digital asset-backed lending, it's so huge that it just needs to happen, right? I'm not sure about the size of the segment, but I wouldn't bet or why the TradFi would not adopt at a certain point in time this thing which is really so beautiful in terms of risk management. Not that I would see it already in even in SG, which is itself quite advanced. So SG is paving basically the way in what Ben was mentioning, which is the primary money markets, and basically the workings and recognition of stablecoins as really legal tender. Right now, stablecoins are not money; they are e-money or tokens or maybe assets or something, or money for somebody who calls it themselves, their own terms, but they are not legal money, they are not legal tender. A couple of these bonds issuance by SG Forge, they kind of were already money, although peanuts money. They were like the biggest bond was 50 million euro. So it seems that there are areas where banks might be faster than the DeFi space, that they will find their way. Because why? Because there are parts of the banking which are really very specific and complicated, and they have the advantage. So that's a mixed bag. So SG is up front with the real-world asset tokenization of a specific kind, the T-bills, right? Locally, in KB, we are kind of much lower. We are only getting basically 2 onboarding crypto-native firms, opening up accounts. That was a pretty big deal. The inability of crypto-specific firms to do the banking, thanks for Mika, or either that was the excuse or whatever, but that was the turning point in history that made the bank be able to onboard. So this is what's going on. I kind of see some job done with stable coins around, not far. I think that the banks are just about to play a big role in mass adoption of the strongest point of all crypto, here I'm provoking a bit, of the store of value, basically either via Bitcoin ETFs or via custody. This is really already happening. At least 2 banks in the market do that. You know, probably a long time before the big 3 banks here in the market will do that. So I think that the scaling will go big when the TradFi steps in, at least of some of the use cases.
I'm going to turn to Michal.
Have I answered?
So I'm going to turn to Michal because as a VC, you see a lot of startups before anyone else. So it's the same question, but from what you're seeing, have you seen any examples of startup leveraging a collaboration between a bank and a decentralized architecture, and something that really caught your attention, or not so much?
Yeah, but not so much in the local ecosystem, and I mean like Czechia and Central and Eastern Europe, because to do that, you have to be very close to the decision makers, yeah? And that's maybe what Patrik mentioned, that SG, as mother company, then they can decide very fast, because they can, and that's the same which we see in the US. We invested in the Cork. They are trying to, or they are making CDS on chain. So big topic, amazing thing, and currently starting cooperation with JP Morgan, and they are like right before the launch. This is what we can't see in the region, because we don't have the real decision makers in like here. So you can see many of these examples in the US and in these ecosystems. Also, you can see, and maybe that's I'm coming to the previous questions about cooperation. You can see like the global companies which are not so restricted by the regulation, like MasterCard, Visa, Stripe, PayPal, is like strongly integrating DeFi players into their tech stack, yeah. So you can see that where you have the right portion of centralized decision making and less regulation, that's the environment where the DeFi and TradFi can cooperate very well.
Maybe I'm going to make anonymity maximalist scream, but one thing that banks are good for is identity. And in the Czech Republic, we have this bank ID, which is, for those of you who are not in the Czech Republic, you can now use your bank ID to be recognized to log onto multiple services, including government services. So I could imagine that this would be, and obviously crypto somehow need identity. That's one of the, one of the big topic. So do you think that, because you mentioned stablecoin, and that was one in my mind, but I was wondering if you don't think that identity is also an area of collaboration between those two worlds where, you're doing KYC, you're doing AML, obviously, but you could rely on someone like Patrik, not him, but his team, to validate the users, for example. Do you think this is an area where we could see collaboration, or it's, you do your own stuff and you're quite happy with that?
I mean, there's always areas of collaboration. I'm pretty sure that there's already some collaboration going on this sense where it's needed, right? But specifically speaking about identity and using the identity on multiple occasions, different banks, different services, right? If we take a step back, we can observe that identity basically is your passport or your ID, right? This is basically issued and it's also the ownership of the state, right? So they are basically, so the state is kind of like your macro custodian with like some, abstract fiduciary duty to take care of you if you don't know what's your identity, basically, right? Maybe. I think that this identity problem is well addressed with a certain pseudonymity already, and it's implemented already on a protocol level, I would say, quite well, right? So when you have, and maybe also not, if you think about it, you have, for example, an address, for example, right? And I can have maybe 10 or 20 addresses, right? And all of those are pseudonymized, basically. They're not fully anonymous. And if somebody wants to click on my wallet, they can see what's inside. That's maybe not the ideal representation of how this maybe should work. I know that Safe and Gnosis actually address this issue, and many people are using it for this because it's the most successful use case for that. But yeah, there are certain use cases where these identity solutions are needed. And when you, for example, lose access, self-custody, it's scary. It's scary, and it's also a very high risk. When you exercise self-custody, you are now your own honeypot. It's not the bank anymore, right? And there's some, I come from a country that's about to implement a solution from the 1st of January if it passes in this stage, I don't believe, I mean, everybody has their own opinion probably on that, but not sure if we're moving forward, if every citizen has to register their, self-custodial address plus the method of storage, attached to the name in a public registry. You're basically becoming a target at that point, right? So they are, blockchains are international, global. They can choose regulations, right? If there's a bank in a certain offline presence, I'm not sure that they can really choose. So it's maybe a question more how we're going to address those questions, not directly maybe to the taker side, but from the maker side, right? So the maker of those rules. And this is maybe something that, would be good to have more improvement on this sense. But yes, definitely, there's decentralized ID solutions, and everybody's free to use them. Yeah.
Mariia, do you want to weigh in on this topic?
I think this is definitely a great question, and you addressed it very well. I believe what I can add is identity. It's a huge topic, and also what does it mean identity? Why do we need actually to provide the identity? Do we have the other solution or we don't? And very often what I feel as a user with a traditional finance is that I'm not only providing my documents, but I'm also providing slightly more in terms when I take a mortgage or something. So they have literally ownership of the apartment, let's say, right? Do I really want to have it or not? Are there any solutions, any other solutions or not? Decentralized finance resolved in slightly different way, and the way you have the smart contracts written, the way you have the protocols written, as you said, is different. So we can provide various options for the users to feel secured without giving all the money and saying, okay, I open the door, this is all I have, and you can have it, right? So very smarter solution, different solution. It's not perfect yet. There are still lots of things to improve on that, but there are already quite many successful products which can prove that there is not necessary we need to have all the paper provided to the institutions like finance institution to show that, again, like that we are real, we have it, and so on. So there are other ways which decentralized finance solves at the moment.
So some of you mentioned real-world asset custom tokenization. Do you think that is a place where the real collaboration could happen? Maybe Patrik?
Yeah.
And what kind of asset in that case?
Well, I'll repeat a little bit myself, and then I'll expand the real competitive advantages of the system. I think will kind of prevail and will rule in their respective areas. So in those areas where the tokenization, how to put it, makes sense or can take advantage of the given property of a blockchain, let's say speed or divisibility, there it can be the off-ramp or the start of the friendship or the transfer. So I really can, and where this might be. So where in the, let me talk from a point of view of TradFi, where in TradFi, if I had a technology which is faster than what I'm running my transaction or on, and shorter settlement times and whatever opening hours, where could I possibly use this technology? It would be probably advanced capital market. It's not here in Czech Republic where the capital markets are kind of, slow. It's probably Frankfurt City and other. It's probably financial structures, wrappers, advanced financial operations. Paradoxically, it's the types of the financial products that kind of led to the grim moments of the traditional finance, which in effect gave rise to the cypherpunk financial decentralized revolt. So the circle is, turning back pretty interestingly in a paradoxical way. So in the advanced finance and financial products, this would be the areas where you can use that, and you probably will. I mean, in the crypto space, the derivatives markets is already pretty advanced, and I'm sure that TradFi guys are kind of looking and scratching their heads how to take advantage. I mean, advanced portfolio managers can probably do better risk-reward profile modeling with such modular and divisible products. So in this sense, it will be very advanced, really word asset tokenization, probably of fewer and more simpler assets than we would think, meaning government bonds and T-bills being tokenized, yes, very, very likely and very soon. Real estate, I don't think, soon. I don't see the advantages of settling the purchase of a house in 1 second, 1 minute, one day, 1 week, or 1 month. Let me provoke 1 year. No, kidding. No, but you see the differences, right? So the more abstract the asset to be tokenized, the more likely it will happen, and vice versa, guessing.
Ben, I'm going to bounce on that, but before that, I will open the question to the people in the room. So if you want to ask a question, think about your question, and I'll get back to you in a second. Do you see a lot of tokens which are tokenization, which are real assets tokenized on BNB chain?
Well, basically, this is one of the most important categories for 2025, I would say, definitely. We started with basically T-bills. We are going to emphasize, and we just released an announcement today about strong support for RWA builders, bottom-up disruptors. But we are also going to work very, very closely with big institutions from the space. Tokenization of equities is kind of like the no-brainer, the next one, the liquid one. So we are very, very excited about this. But also commodities. There's certain market for it where just users actually love maybe tokenized gold or something like this for storage or like for owning, but also for institutions to provide easier settlement. But also, I don't know. I personally I like this category of real estate tokenization because. From my experience, buying a flat in EU, right? It took about 4 or 5 months for this to settle, and it's fine, right? 4 or 5 months is fine, but why the 8% fee on like 100 or 200, 300K, right? If the ownership certificate can actually be on the blockchain. But this is the biggest challenge. That's the real issue is basically that you cannot provide legal enforcement just with your wallet and with a transaction, right? You can come to somebody and say, oh, hey, I bought your apartment right now with this transaction here, right? And you go to court, and the court is going to say, what is this? Right, so it's unfortunately also ends on the regulatory side, and I'm just going to keep it short because I saw this. There are first movers in the regulatory field as well. For example, in the UAE, the VARA regulator basically did a very, very good classification of who can buy how and exactly what in the category 1. Basically, you can register your tokenization platform and it's fully enforceable in the legal sense, right? I understand that MiCA and the European Union also tries to do that. I see that there's been huge advancements in this, right? But it feels a bit like the classification of having like a coffee in front of you and a water, right? And then somebody is maybe saying to the coffee that it's a liquid substance, right? I mean, if I drink coffee, I don't really think about liquid substance, right? I think about coffee. If it's coffee, then just name it like this, right? And this is where I see that, for example, the UAE was very, very strong. But in EU, there's also really, really good advancements, and we're moving along, and this is a really, really good and positive sign.
Does anyone have a question? Oh, okay, I'll start with you. Go ahead. Oh, we're waiting for the microphone? Okay, good.
Big thanks to all the panelists. Great discussion. I think it's very applicable and right on time. My question would go to Patrik. So if you change your hats and you wear on your banking hat again, what would be the 3 key things you're gonna look for a DeFi startup to have so that you would consider it a decent idea to look into as part of your VC venture in the bank? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Great question. I have a bank hat and then the VC hat. I'll start with the bank hat. the entity will have to be compliant and from the regulatory point of view. So that's number one. Number two, the risk appetite of the bank will lead it to question intent and test the source of the yield. Let me simplify the FA2 yield making, just for the sake of the discussion. So if it's a yield, then where does the yield comes from? If it's lending, it would be mostly also the KYC ML operations. And number three, which is the bank VC hat, is the ability to do joint business between the bank and the DeFi entity. Yes, we invest, but we invest not as a pure VC aiming for exit ROI on our equity. We maximize basically the business cooperation between an entity and the bank. You know, if it's a fintech and a bank, it's fintech and a bank. If it's DeFi entity and a bank, it's whatever. We call that synergy. So we look into how can we grow the DeFi entity via probably introducing it to our clients, and what revenues we can earn on the cooperation, and what points of our client happiness we can earn. So compliance, sustainability of the business model, which I simplified into the yield, and then the joint business together.
Thank you. There was another question there. Yeah.
Okay, so what's the value proposition of tokenized real estate, and who is the client?
Basically, everyone that wants to buy, for example, somebody living in Prague that maybe wants to own a flat or a part of a flat in Singapore in a matter of 0.7.5 second finality of transaction, basically, right? Maybe not now, but in 1 month from now. This would be the client, let's say, from the bottom up, right? But also from the institutional side of things, the settlement layer there is basically, it is hyper efficient, basically, from a time perspective, security perspective, and also capital perspective. This is why, yeah, I believe that it's going to be the future of settlement in one way or another, right? If it's in one way or another, it's going to involve multiple stakeholders, as always, right? But let's go. As we're going into the future, to some extent, we're also going back and solving the problems from prehistoric times almost, right? If you think about it, why cannot I buy a flat in Prague with a ton of potatoes, right? Tokenized potatoes. Why not? I can actually do it if you really do it. If you want to exchange value to value, that was actually what I tried to communicate, right? You can also use a currency, but if I decide that I want to exchange a ton of potatoes for a flat in Prague, I should be able to do so.
I'll give you an example. There's a company in the Czech Republic called InvestBay, which we invested in, and so it's a company that manages flats. So they buy flats and they rent the flats, and you can buy a token which will represent a fraction of that flat, and then you earn a yield on the rent that coming from renting that flat. So that would be one example of who the client is.
Although picking on you, that's not tokenization of the property, but tokenization of the free cash flow.
Yes.
But why not potato for flats? That might be a niche, but I can see the tokenization working in collateralized lending. I mean, a real estate collateralized debt, everybody loves being a creditor, having real estate as collateral, right? But so it's a great collateral because it stores value, but it's very clumsy. The centrally government-owned registry, that's like a pain, right? And efficiency could be really add into the process of real estate-backed lending via the tokenization. So if I again put on the head of the philosophy that the comparative advantage wins, then in the longer term, tokenization, because of the credit markets, could make it like an intelligent thing.
I'm going to wrap up with the last question because time is going super fast. I'm going to ask to each of you the same question. Imagine that we meet again in 5 years, 2030, right? What do you hope has happened in the space, and what do you fear will still be broken? Ben, do you want to start?
I really believe that education is going to be on another level. So I'm pretty sure that universities are, already looking into incorporating it into the curriculum. As soon as it's in the curriculum, they will understand the technical perspective. And also, I'm really hopeful that there's going to be more education on the how actually value transfer and finance actually works, right? This is definitely going to be, we're going to have, as a consequence, more users wanting to use, bearer assets as their main store of value. But this will also come with certain risks, and I'm pretty sure that those risks are going to be, tackled by different people in a different way. But this is, as the adoption grows, is probably going to be one very big topic, right, that we need to work on.
Mariia?
If I am a dreamer, I wish we have a mass adoption by then. If I'm more realistic, I would love to see us, I'm talking about the DeFi space, to come closer and to resolve the real users' problems, to make the UX less complex, so the users, with the education they have, they can understand, or actually they don't need to understand what they use, but they see the benefit out of it. I also would like to see that the question of the regulations would be resolved by then, and we'll have clear guidelines, what, have, when, and more understanding of that. Those are two things I would love to see. Of course, there are many other, but those are two my primer, adding to the education.
Thank you. Michal?
I hope that we will see even more the adoption of the institutions, so even more like big players on the market will adopt crypto stablecoins, and so they will create a credibility for the industry. That's one thing. And second thing, which is actually connected, is more success stories. Yeah, and now I'm wearing the head of the VC. We need more success stories which can create like a real value, and they can show that it like makes sense for normal people to be part of these stories. Yeah, and that's also the responsibility for the fintechers to help these success stories to make happen.
Patrik?
ETH at 50,000.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. All right. Well, Mariia, Ben, Michal, Patrik, thank you for sharing the stage with me. Thanks to you for being a very attentive audience, and see you in 5 years when we debrief that conversation, shall we? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you.